Best.
So it's my brain. Okay, here we go.
Can't unhear it.
This is a show about the 500 albums that Rolling Stone says are the best, and we're gonna talk about them ad nauseum. This is a show about the 500 albums that Rolling Stone says are the best, and we're gonna talk about them ad nauseum. This is a show about the 500 albums that Rolling Stone says are the best, and we're gonna talk about them ad nauseum. This is a show about the 500 albums that Rolling Stone says are the best, and we're gonna talk about them ad nauseum.
It's a beautiful Thursday night in the fine state of Maryland, and we'd like to welcome you to our second episode of Backwards Beats. My name's Carl Carter Fansteel.
And I'm Dan Woodard.
Coming to you from Thought Shack Studio, and super happy to be sharing a moment here. We got past episode 1, otherwise known as Album 500 on the Rolling Stones Top 500 Albums of All Time list. So now that we're into it, we spend most of our free time talking about formatting. So for you gentle listeners out there, we're figuring it out too, and we're going to try some new things for the next several sessions until we feel like we're able to land the plane beautifully. So Daniel.
Yes, sir.
Who are we talking about today?
Well, we're talking about the 499th top album of all time as decided by Rolling Stone in 2023, which is the album Ask Rufus by Rufus, featuring Chaka Khan.
Featuring's almost seems like robbery.
Yeah, it is. Now, the funny thing about this is the album is Ask Rufus, which used to be the band Rufus's name. So it gets kind of weird.
Okay.
Yeah, they started off with the name. Well, they started off with many names. They landed on Ask Rufus, shortened it, made a few albums, then made an album called Ask Rufus.
This is very Chicago Transit Authority to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely kind of weird. But, they came out of Chicago, and, they're mostly known to be a funk band prior to this album.
Okay.
Right? And they're most known for Tell Me Something Good.
Of course.
Fantastic song written by Stevie Wonder.
Yes,
But
indeed.
definitely put them on the map. Sweet Thing, another great song. Do You Love What You Feel? And Ain't Nobody. Those are like their top songs that they're known for.
That's right. Ain't Nobody is them as well.
Yeah.
Man, she delivers on that one.
Sure that.
And so do they. They embrace some different instrumentation in that song.
Yeah.
Than the other three that you mentioned.
Yep. But everybody, if you don't think you know Tell Me Something Good, you know Tell Me Something Good.
Precisely.
Like, Google it. You'll find it.
Or if you're Dan, code it into something, let AI find it for you.
Don't trust AI. So yeah, they started in like 1968. Like I said, they went through a number of name and personnel changes.
Who did they end up being though? If you had to like core cast it?
Well, if I wanted to core cast it, it's kind of tough because they went through a lot of things. But they eventually ended up with Chaka Khan being their lead vocalist. We have Tony Maiden on guitar and vocals, Kevin Murphy on keyboards and vocals, Bobby Watson, I want to talk about him a little bit later, on bass, Andre Fisher on drums, and David Hawk Walensky on keyboards.
Okay, let's go, Walensky.
Yeah, man.
The Poles getting their play.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, they started off in 1968. It took a while till they became Rufus. It took till 1970.
68, 70. So they had like 2-year gestation period-ish.
Yeah. And then 1972, Chaka Khan joined them.
I mean, and without her, we wouldn't be talking about this album right now.
Probably not.
I know that I feel like I'm fanboying so up front, but I mean, that's... Sure, in the 70s, there was a market for funk music, fusion music, stuff with a heavy orchestral influence, but lyricless... I don't know that you make pop radio. I don't know that you make timeless hits.
Probably not.
without that.
You become a producer.
That's right. Yeah, you become Bob James.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Which, by the way, released a Tiny Desk concert the other day. Fantastic.
Have you seen Chaka Khan's Tiny Desk?
I did. It's absolutely skip proof.
At 71 years old.
A, looks like she's 50 and also flooring this performance.
Yeah, 100%.
I had such a good time watching that one.
Yeah. Wow, I have goosebumps just talking about it right now. Yeah.
We're going to watch it after this, aren't we?
Fantastic. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Sorry. I got in the middle of dance history lesson.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So, Chaka Khan, she joined in 1972. And this is where she gained her fame. And it really came out of like Tell Me Something Good and those things. But as a solo artist, she got a lot of success with I'm Every Woman. Big hit.
Of course.
And well covered. Through the Fire. And then basically she, over her career, she earned, she sold over like 70 million records.
70.
70 million records, which is pretty good. And she's actually a heck of a philanthropist.
That's always gives you the warm, good feels afterwards. What's she like to dabble and donate in?
She got the Chaka Khan Foundation, which is empowering women and children at risk, at-risk women and children, whether they're through domestic violence and autism support, HIV and AIDS, health and wellness advocacy, combating hunger and homelessness, arts and music education. She's done a lot.
So like we needed more reasons to like her besides just being an excellent vocalist.
Yeah.
Fun fact-ish, I watched the Tiny Desk concert that you watched, and it's so cool to see how humble she was in presenting her band and how she's kept people with her for so long too.
Yeah.
Like that one backup singer who's been with her since like day one.
Yeah.
You love to see. I do, at least. I'm a loyalist when it comes down to it. When you're in the music field, there's just something so special that you curate with people over time.
Yeah.
The ability to read and articulate and attune yourself to other musicians just by playing with them. Like, you could do this in any craft, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But you could tell that there was some real love sitting in that room.
Yeah, actually, the funniest thing is she's referring to her bass player. She's like, the only way you'll know how old I am is by looking at him.
And that's how you know that they're friends.
Yes, 100%.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Because we're familiar with a lot of her catalog, with and without Rufus involved, why do you think this album made the cut for top 500?
It's hard to say because it was a big transition for them.
How so?
Well, they're known mostly as a funk band.
Sure.
Right? And this album, I would say, doesn't have much funk on it.
It's funky.
Yep.
It's not funk.
Correct. It's
So,
not
like-
Parliament. It's not.
No, like Thieves in the Temple by Prince is funk.
Yep.
And you can hear influences throughout this album that are attuned with Earth, Wind, and Fire, Tower of Power. And yeah, you can go down like the crazy Parliament route if you wanted to and go into true funk stuff. But you're not pulling from catalogs of all of the masters of funk. I mean, there's no whisper of anything that even screams James Brown. All of their hits are rounded off and soft. No, this is a melodic album first and foremost.
Melodic, and it's fairly ambitious in that, like, its instrumentation, orchestration. There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle.
No question about it. And you wonder if they're painting with almost too large a palette at times.
Sometimes I think they are.
Yeah, and I agree with that too.
Yeah.
Dan and I don't talk about these albums in our listening experiences over the course of the week in between, unless something's really stunning or shocking. But we do kind of talk about it a little bit and try not to ruin anything for Arab for about 30 minutes before the session, just to make sure we're not stepping on each other's toes. And I think, these are some of the liner notes is they are genre ambiguous in a way. I mean, considering the year, right? You're looking at 1977, folks. And so if you look at what you had in 1977 is, the feels of disco were still very alive. Mm-hmm. Soul music is not even remotely long forgotten, still growing. R&B still growing. Funk music is alive, well, and healthy.
Yep.
But so is so are the balladeers, and so are cinematic and orchestral strings being used everywhere.
Yes.
It's like every producer had a budget to bring in a 40-piece orchestra to support anybody. And you could argue they leaned into everything I just said, plus some.
Right. And they had the skill to do it. So there are songs on here that are arranged by the strings are arranged or orchestrated by the band members.
I'd assume with that level of musicianship, I mean, no one's a slouch on this stage.
No.
I mean, everybody's carrying their weight.
Yeah. They did have a string arranger for some of the parts, but there's one song in particular that was written and composed by...
I can't wait. Second segment to hear which one that is.
Yeah.
But overall, it's kind of a perplexing album in my mind, in the sense that they don't really ever do the same thing twice.
Not really. No.
And so last week, for those who didn't tune in, we did Arcade Fire's album Funeral. Excuse me. And there were many similarities between songs, including one specifically I like to highlight, which was the drum beat that they like to jump into on many songs. But there were also kind of just signatures that you could find in every song. These little pieces of stacked vocals with an octave between them. Funny bits of dissonance used passing through major chords. Mm-hmm. And you'd see them again and again. Here, it's too tough of a read. You're not going to find callbacks in that sense.
No, I would say what you find in similarities across things have to do with some of their arranging techniques.
Sure.
That they use, and we can talk about that when we get into some of the tracks.
Totally.
Especially around the orchestral arranging techniques that they use, which is apropos of the time.
I agree. I also would feel like we'd be remiss not to mention there's a big jazz influence on this album across the board. And we're not talking bebop. We're talking almost the advent of smooth jazz and, the kind of fusion jazz stuff.
Yeah.
I very Return to Forever is something I think, I would mention. The chord voicings are big. There's moments that get kind of, like dad rock Steely Dan jazz, like...
Yeah, maybe a predecessor to the slow jam.
I'd say so. I mean, considering the amount of cut times that we were able to pull out of this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there definitely are.
Yep.
An interesting listen, to say the least. And on a relatively short album.
Yeah, it's only like 37 minutes, something like that.
9 songs.
Right.
And, we could easily take an axe to that and make it a little shorter.
At least by one.
If that's not enough foreshadowing, then hang tight. We'll take a little break and be right back.
Hey there, audio enthusiasts. Do you have trouble getting the best quality audio out of your headphones? Do you know that you have high quality music but get a lo-fi sound? Ever wonder why your favorite tracks don't sound as crisp as they should? Have you ever considered that earwax buildup might be the culprit? Introducing Soniclean headphones, the only headphones that not only deliver crystal clear sound, but also clean the wax out of your ears. Imagine this, you're jamming to your favorite tracks, and without lifting a finger, our patented Waxbuster technology gently and effectively removes earwax. It's like a spa day for your ears, all while you enjoy your music. But wait, there's more. With every pair of Soniclean headphones, you get a complimentary Candle Crafter Kit. Yes, you heard that right. Turn that pesky earwax into a personalized aromatic candle. Your ears stay clean and your home smells amazing. So why settle for ordinary headphones when you can have Soniclean? Clean ears, clear sound, and a cozy candlelit evening. Get your Soniclean headphones and Candle Crafter Kit today and make every listening session a wax-free, relaxing experience.
So, for the second section here, we like to get into the meat, roll through the track list a little bit. We'll spend a little more time on stuff we found interesting, a little less time on things that, weren't as notable.
Yeah, and we're still finding our legs here. Our first episode might have been a little long in the tooth in this section, so we're playing with this format.
We appreciate your ears and your grace. I hope you had some traffic for the last one to listen to. All right, open me up. Where do we start?
Track number 1.
Yeah.
At Midnight. parentheses, my love will lift you up.
Solid song title.
Yeah, it is.
And solid intro, as we just reviewed.
Yeah, 100%. Kind of a fusion-y intro, but you mentioned an interesting callback.
Yeah, absolutely. It starts off with this keyboard, just doing this kind of nice repeating arpeggiated pattern down. And I swear to God, it would almost just like, got to get you in the beginning of the Earth, Wind & Fire tune.
Yep.
And, great for the time, great for the style. And I think folks were still, in the 70s, we're still very album oriented.
Yeah.
The EP is not the focal point when someone's recording your album. They're like, we want hit them hard, come out as anybody would.
Yeah.
I'd say they achieve this because they roll right into big drum hits. They have a horn section right off the bat as well.
Yeah, and what's kind of interesting is with such a big intro, then you get into this lick, which is basically like a piano bass lick.
Yeah.
Which you hear over and over. You never hear that lick again. The intro lick. That's just, here's the thing we're gonna do.
Yep. Well, this is that common theme we were talking about earlier. That there is no signature. Someone said, this is a sick lick. Let's show it off.
Yep.
And that was that.
Yeah.
Which reminds me of a lot of our peers who are very talented and sometimes well-trained musicians. Is like, let's flex.
Yep.
There's so much of that on this album.
Yeah. There's some indulgence. Yeah.
Indeed. And this is music made for musicians. You ever feel that, that bug, I will walk into a room, you're going to play for 200 people. But we're not playing for 198 people who are there to hear music. We're playing for the two musicians in the room.
Right.
That's what this is all about.
Yep. 100%. There's plenty for everyone else on this album, but
there is, because I think it's grounded by two things. Overall, Chaka Khan is wildly wonderful and consistent.
Yeah.
Her vocals are approachable. You can hear what she's saying. But also, even though the band can operate and crunch by redlining it at a 10, generally speaking, when she's singing, they know how to sit back and accommodate her. They're not stepping all over her. And, that takes a lot of restraint, when you're a six-piece band.
Yeah. And this does feature her, right? They give her room to grow, room to shine on this song.
Yeah. Here's my this shows your age moment of the song, though. This song is heavily disco influenced.
It is. But it has a fantastic horn section in it.
Absolutely. A smoking one, and they're mixed right up front.
Yeah.
What else sticks out about the song to you?
Well, you mentioned the mix. And I can't help but notice the cardboard boxes used as a drum set.
Unfortunately, that is a plague on this album.
Yeah.
And it was of the time. But man, so earlier I popped over to another song known as YMCA.
Mm-hmm.
You've been to weddings. Which was recorded 1 year later. The mix difference on how gorgeous YMCA sounds. It's kind of like this weird lipness test for anything late 70s. And you can take that. You can put YMCA's mix against a ton of things. Up into the mid 80s, and it's still going to scrub stuff.
Yeah.
But it shows you this is not just, that's how it was at the time. You can't just get away with that. Sure. I understand no one was using resonant heads on their drum sets at that time. I understand people had literal ripped rag towel mutes taped to the bottom of their drums. I totally get it. Think the intro snare to Brick House.
Yep.
However, when you hear how brilliant and bright and sparkly these bands could sound, I can't help but thinking if they were able to excite the frequencies a little bit more across this whole album, how much more I would have enjoyed it.
Yeah, let me ask you, as a producer yourself, is it the mix or is it other things about it? Because I noticed, in headphones, there's really nice panning, there's really nice stereo separation, and we talked about in one of the songs there's some hand percussion, and that is blended beautifully. in it.
Perfectly, one could argue. Yes.
But I agree with what you're saying about YMCA. So would you say that's the mix? Would you say that? I mean, it is the mix, but what is that?
So
really?
yeah, you can categorize it into the mix. You can immediately blame it on the master, right? And you got to think that they had. I regret not digging into who produced this album and the credits too, but you don't do an album that makes this list on a basement budget.
Yeah, it was produced by Rufus, but I don't know if they had additional mastering.
Okay, so that's my first indication of cheapness. Look, guys, I'm a musician. You're a musician. I run a studio. I've worked with dozens on dozens and dozens of bands, and so have you, in all sorts of facets of production, including video production too. Mm-hmm. One thing about us artists is we're scrappy, and by nature probably fairly cheap. If it was produced by Rufus, something tells me this thing never even got a chance to be pushed through a good master bus or really high-end gear, and you can hear the difference there.
Yeah.
Shame. I'd love to take a shot at these stems. I'm not going to tell you I'd do much better, but man, if you simply pushing it through some of the tech I just have in the box nowadays,
right,
we could have some glitter on this thing.
Yeah, 100%.
It doesn't ruin your listening experience. However, it's tough to get excited about some of the more dynamic or subtle moments on the album, which there are plenty of, we'll get into, when everything kind of has this warm wash over it.
Yeah. But what is nice, you said dynamic. The thing I love about these older albums, though, is they actually, as musicians, use dynamics intentionally.
Well, they had to, right?
Yeah.
You're not automating your files here in 1977. Pro Tools is not a thing.
Right. And so what's interesting is album 500, right? They use some techniques you don't hear now. They actually use accelerando. They sped up intentionally in their songs.
Sure.
Which everything's on a grid now.
It's challenging.
Right? And here they actually use dynamics because long before the compression wars.
Oh, of course.
Right? So, which is a positive, I'd say. But I'm with you. I would much rather listen to the sound quality of the Village People and YMCA than the sound quality of this album.
Especially with such fantastic musicianship.
Yeah.
And I think that's the piece. If this was less complicated, if this is 4-chord bubblegum stuff, you wouldn't be getting as much ride on this from me. But because there's some pretty filthy piano, guitar playing, layering of strings, horns, harmonies, the band is singing all the time.
Yeah.
You just want that extra layer, that extra level,
So it's funny. One thing in this song, and we should probably move on, is I love the background vocals, and I'll talk about some of the things I like about the background vocals in this one. But except for when they're singing in unison. And I don't know if they're so in tune that they're out of phase, but it just bothers my ear a little bit.
Yeah. I wouldn't call the band's backup singing a conquest by any means.
Yeah.
It's so funny because once again, some of the best players I know and I've ever met in my life, they're not tone deaf, but
Right.
you're not built to be a prominent voice, especially when you're going against such a strong voice. It only opens the wound a little bit more.
Yeah, the harmony.
She's so immaculate.
Yeah, the harmonies give you room to rub.
I agree.
And the unisons don't. So I'm like, is this an intonation thing or is it a phase thing? Because it's so close.
I'm going to unfortunately err on the side of
It's probably intonation. Yeah. That's my guess too.
This guy's like, I can play E minor 9 in 7 positions, but you won't catch me at 440 today.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Song number 2, Close the Door.
Close the door, baby. What do you got?
I'm going to defer to you on this.
All right. Well, this one's nice. I mean, it's kind of a slow burn. But the strings in this one definitely make it feel of its time.
Indeed.
And so, there's a lot of unisons and octaves.
It's simple in that sense. I like that.
Yeah. But again, they have a repeated vocal hook that goes on here. And I was going to talk about it later, but I'll mention it now, is that I feel like because the band has some chops, that a lot of the vocal harmonies are arranged by people who know how to do horn arrangements
Sure.
because they feel like horn parts.
Yeah, I think they're seeing charts in their head.
Yeah.
I totally get that.
Yeah. There's no, like, very often you'll do this with horn parts, but with vocal harmonies, you'll have one person who might be singing the same note 3 or 4 times just to do that, or they might be crossing paths, and I'm not hearing as much of that.
No, you're not getting like traditional counterpoint.
Right.
Horn walls are kind of a thing, and I've never arranged for strings. I have arranged for horns, but I imagine strings aren't too far off. It is you're right. The chorus, if you will, not the chorus in song structure, but the chorus of singers.
Yes.
It does have a very sectional type of approach to it.
And I feel like there's a lot of that in this album.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
This song is not what I would expect as a number 2 coming into the album. It kind of slow jams in its own way, doesn't it?
Yeah, usually that's number 3.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
But number 3 was taken on this one.
It was taken.
So talk to me about it. Oh man.
What a waste of a fantastic song title.
Right? Tell me about it, dude. What is the full song title, Daniel?
Slow Screw Against the Wall.
And this song sounds like Mr. Roger taking a piss in the morning.
To me, it feels like Skinamax in space.
There's nothing sexy about this song.
Not
to
at
me.
all.
Like they could have phoned it in with a wah-wah pedal, wooka chicka, and gotten more done.
Yeah, so let's be clear. This is an instrumental song.
It is fully instrumental.
Fully orchestral.
Yes. Absolutely pimped
yes.
out by strings.
Yep. So Bobby Watson, the bass player, and Dave Walensky, keyboard player, wrote this.
Mm-hmm.
There's some piano in it, of course.
And a couple other keyboards, as we've determined.
Yes, there are. It's only like a minute and a half, and I feel like this was a gimme for them. And I
don't know. Spotify is showing me 2:16.
Oh, 2:16. Jesus. All right, sorry. This is a skip for me. This song. I'm sorry.
And here's the thing: is this technically bad music?
No.
What the hell is this song doing on this album?
Right. It belongs in a porno.
If that, it belongs on like it gets damn close to elevator music, like definition elevator music.
Yeah. I was looking forward to hearing this song. Oh, we never talked about this. I never heard this album before.
I'd listened to it one time when I was, kind of with the concept for this podcast, like a year ago.
Right.
It wasn't that offensive then, only in the sense that I was not listening to this album as a piece of art, right? Like,
yeah,
it was just like in the background kitchen.
Yeah.
It's just distracting.
Yeah. So I'm guessing it potentially got put on as a gimme. It potentially got put on to make the album over 35 minutes.
Potentially. I think it's also when you have 5-6 really killer players with a lot of ideas. So, one of our favorite bands of all time, Snarky Puppy, they, especially if you watch some of the more recent vlogs for one of their most recent albums, they really pass the charts around, and they always are really good about crediting who wrote the song. And so, you'll get, Trinity under it, Mark Letary, right? And I think here what we got was the bassist and the keyboard player.
Yep.
They're like, well, we're going to get our one on there.
Yeah.
And no one listened to the pieces, the album as a whole, and said, this isn't a great third song.
Yeah. Like, even if you're going to put this on the album,
Sing it last.
Was that?
Put it last.
Put it last, or have it end to side one.
Sure. You know what? I'll entertain that. But third? Also, after you've already kind of like given your energy away on song 2.
Right.
Like, we need more chunk song 2. Song 3, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
With that said, we get a little bit back in song 4.
We sure do.
Earth Song.
Earth Song.
By the way, just not my favorite titling for most of these tracks. Slow Screw Against the Wall, fantastic. 10 out of 10 name.
It is the best name track.
Yet
On the
arguably
album.
the worst track on the album.
Of the worst track
and
on the
probably their career.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Earth Song, shit for names.
This is kind of a weird song,
It is.
right? So this song, like, it comes in as a banger, right? It's funky. But not only, but well, we can talk more about it. But this song has a very weird song form.
How so?
Well, first of all, it has 2 intros.
Indeed, it does.
There's this funky intro that, like, I don't know what to do with it, which maybe could have just been its own track.
I mean, we've all had that moment if you're in the musician writing realm where you got like 25 sketches that you or your band have, but they're only a half minute long. You don't know where to put them. You think one day I'll plug this in somewhere.
Right.
This could have totally been that.
Yeah. And because then the first intro essentially doesn't stop, but it dies out.
There's a hard-ish stop, and then they move into the next section. Yeah.
Into a very orchestral piece.
Catching a theme here?
Yep. And so I actually went through and counted the sections.
Of course you did.
Right. So we have intro 1, intro 2, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, an interlude with a chord solo, which is kind of fun, verse 2, pre-chorus, and then a long chorus outro. So if you were to analyze a song form, for those who know like AABA or ABACAB, those typical things, this would be A, B, C, D, E, F, C, D, G.
Those are not notes, guys. That's song form.
The song form. Those are sections. It's weird.
And I'm to understand the interlude post-chorus doesn't even call back the intro, does it?
It does not.
So it's an interlude of its own, which is, generally speaking, your interlude is like a revisit of something you've already played.
Right. Or a bridge. You could call it a bridge.
Sure.
But yeah. And now I like the chord solo.
Oh yeah.
Like it's a really cool chord solo. And I actually like this song.
I think this song is a highlight on the album for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just strange.
It is, and I think that's why I like it.
Yeah.
And also, how much of it is just relief after Slow Screw, and then after, Close the Door, not being an energy bomb.
Right. And this song has my favorite lyric.
Which is?
You make my body brown and smooth.
Oof. I can relate. I cannot relate.
Now, having not heard the very first lyric, so the song talks about the sun and the moon. So the first line is sun, and then blah, 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 and it goes into you make me like. So it makes some sense. But out of context, I'm like, what is this song about?
I love the vocal performance on this song.
Oh, it definitely showcases her. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was written. It feels like it's written with. She's the only one in the world who can sing it. You know, it's the story of Chandelier, that pop song recently.
Yeah.
Not recently, 2015 maybe.
Yeah.
I guess Sia, who has the song, she was just the demo singer, and they were shopping it off to like Beyonce and some other folks. And I someone will fix me. Send us an email if you would like to correct me at.
Oh,
what's our email?
Backwards Beats Podcast at gmail.com.
Or you can at us on Instagram at
Backwards Beats Podcast.
Lovely. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Beyonce who then heard the demo Sia did and went, oh, I don't want that. That's hers.
Right.
Like she crushed it so hard. That's how I feel about Chaka in this song.
Yeah.
Just fantastic. She is like so nimble over these phrases. And as you've mentioned, I mean, this is a song that is kind of an odd listen. It's fun. And she just sings beautifully.
She does. And another one where they really use dynamics.
Yes, indeed. And you can hear it. And once again, man, had they had the production techniques we have today, I think that this would be a big contender for me for top.
And I'd say this is the first song in the album where I actually enjoy the orchestra.
It doesn't feel overdone. It doesn't feel forced.
Or kind of schmaltzy. And it's not their fault of the stuff that feels schmaltzy in the other songs, because of its time, right? Like things become tropes. Things become for a reason, and things get overdone for a reason. So I'm not like crapping on that. But in this one, there's some really nice like chromatic and dissonant chords that happen in the orchestra, which really to me liven it up. So
Indeed. I mean, because schmaltzy is such a great word. Because like we don't really know what it means, but we kind of know what it means. Like schmaltzy to me is like Copacabana strings, you know? Like,
right.
Just lathered on there.
Yeah.
Speaking of some more fun arranging and stringing, this is where the album comes to life with me, by the way, is Earth Song into Everlasting Love.
Yeah.
And Everlasting Love is the banger of this album, if you're just to look at the numbers and I think recognition.
Yeah. And, I wonder if these numbers have to do with the fact that Mary J. Blige covered this song for the Olympics in 1996.
I mean, it certainly didn't hurt the numbers.
Yeah.
But if you listen to why she even chose it, look at the construction of the song.
Yeah.
It's very attainable. You put it this way, song structure wise, if you were to do the same analysis that you did on Earth Song, nothing like it, right?
Well, I got so confused by Earth Song. I'm sorry. I'm like, is this through composed? Like, what's going on here?
I love that you deep dive. I mean, Everlasting Love, I don't want to spend too much time on because I feel like it's pretty well known. And look, you as the consumer, if you're not familiar with this album, this is a great place to start. I think it really captures the energy of where this album, whoever made the decision to put this at $4.99, this is a heavy influence.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I've talked about arranging techniques of the era. Right. So in this one, there's two like string arranging techniques that cement this in its time.
Can you talk a little more about those?
Yeah. So they use the idea of common tones and guide tones. So common tone is you have a chord progression going on and there's one note that is common among those chords and the strings hold that.
Yeah.
And they do that in the chorus and you just hear it high sitting in the background. It was usually used basically for filler. And it does fill out the arrangement. But
for all you hip hop producers nowadays, it's what you refer to as drone, right? It's
correct.
Like a drone tone is kind of like the new common tongue on that.
Yeah. And so then guide tones are picking choice notes of a chord progression and just walking that chord progression. But the strings are doing nothing else interesting.
No, and that's there it's to fatten it up, right?
Just to fatten up the mix, basically.
It supports it.
Yep. And that is very much of the time. And one thing that this album, so if anybody likes or wants to know what inspired Silk Sonic, I would say there's some stuff on here. If you haven't listened to Silk Sonic, which is Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak,
yep,
or Anderson .Paak, I guess. Do you know why the dot's there?
I don't.
According to him, he wants to be detail oriented, so he put the dot there to remind himself to kind of stay the course.
Oh, good on him.
Yeah,
I saw him on Sesame Street.
Really?
That's how you know you made it, is when Sesame Street invites you in to do like one of their things. He has a great song he does in there. Holiday, holiday, what is a holiday?
Yeah.
He's got like some little multicultural fun kids and animals just like sitting around him as he like plays like a little Nate Smith looking drum kit. He's rapping, he's singing. He's having a ball. He's a perfect character for music right now. I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's fantastic. And so, yeah.
But no, the Silk Sonic throwback, that's a incredible comparison, or not comparison, but I think you're shedding light. If you're wondering where these guys grab this influence, and Bruno Mars is not used to stealing styles. I mean, if you listen to his album prior to this, I mean, the amount of ripoff of Michael Jackson you get out of him. By the way, done very well. No hate to Bruno Mars, but like you listen to, some of the Michael influence stuff, or like Locked Out of Heaven, like the Police reference,
right.
It's just fantastic mimicking.
Yes.
And
no shade, but yes.
No, yeah, exactly. I mean, call it what it is. And I've listened to those tunes a million times. I cover them. I DJ them at weddings. I mean, thanks, Bruno. You've made me a bunch of money, and I love your songs. With that said, this is a heavy influence. This entire kind of vibe. I hate to throw that word out there, but truly, they're pulling from this in order to get smoking out the window and stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I thought that was definitely interesting on this, and yeah. Now, if you go listen to the Mary J. Blige cover, unfortunately, the producer must have hated her because, or must have been a drummer, Let's just
Is
say
it,
that.
is it just they were like, we're gonna fix those cardboard boxes, Dan?
Yeah, it is drum and bass forward in the mix. It's
They're
which is
not
unfortunate.
compensating for Mary, are they? Has she lost it over the years? No, she hasn't.
This is 1996.
Oh no, she was in her throws then.
Yeah, no,
And she could belt. Yeah, no, it was probably just overly. You think heavy hip hop influence in '96, bass and drums are natural? I mean, I don't know if they're analog drums. I'd have to listen to the cover.
Yeah,
I'm gonna check that out after this with you.
yeah.
Well, this is a nice time. We're taking a little break before we get to the latter half of the album.
Hey, you. Still can't get it together? Perfect. Misfit Mattress is here to make sure even your sleep is as uncomfortable as your life choices. Forget comfort. Our mattresses come pre-soaked in urine and are guaranteed to be 88% hepatitis free. Because if your bed doesn't smell like rock bottom, are you even trying? We don't just stop at bad springs and mystery stains. No, we're pushing the boundaries of self-loathing. Every Misfit mattress is packed with real-life junk. Broken dreams, sharp springs, and the occasional dead raccoon for that authentic alleyway experience. Worried about injuries? You should be. But hey, tetanus shots are still cheaper than therapy, right? So, if you're the kind of person who's made enough terrible decisions to end up here, why not cap it off with the world's worst mattress? Misfit Mattress. Because if you're sleeping on this, your life is already a disaster. Call 1-800-SLEEP-BAD today and ask about our Urine Deluxe model. Hurry before your dignity sobers up.
Welcome back, as our friend Kevin would say. Welcome back. So we are. I wouldn't. We talked about kind of the A and the B side.
Yep.
If you were to print this on vinyl for album number 500 that we did last session, would you say this is where the record turns, or would you put it between Earth Song and Everlasting Love?
I feel like Earth Song is, well, probably just based on real estate, it's here. If I wanted to split it, I would put Everlasting Love as number one. But given that that Slow Screw is such a short song, just logistically, because the medium dictates the format. Very
Sure,
often,
yeah.
right?
You only flip it over because you had to, because of time.
Right, right. So
I know. So take the science out of it, and just what's your gut say in this song order? So we're keeping the song order. Where does this flip over?
This is song one, side two.
I agree entirely with you, and mainly because side one really needed Everlasting Love in order to keep up its panties, like because of the pace of Close the Door and the physical piece known as Slow Screw Against the Wall. Everlasting Love helps anchor an A side of an album for me.
Yeah, and all these songs are between 4 and 5 minutes long.
That's right. All right, cool. So moving on to our unofficial B side.
Let's do it.
The song is called Hollywood. It sits at a not even. It's just under 1.6 million listens, and it punches out at 4 minutes and 9 seconds.
That's a fact.
I'm just reading off of the
Just
screen.
read
here.
off Spotify.
Dan
Yeah,
has his own screen, so I'm just reading Spotify's screen.
that's right. That's right. So this song, I really like. There's a groovy vocal hook, which again sounds like a horn section. It actually reminds me. This one in particular reminds me of horn soli. Like a soli section, like in a big band.
I'm not familiar with that terminology.
So you know what a solo is,
Yes.
right? So when a bunch of people solo at the same time, it's called a soli.
Oh, so you're talking about once Corey Henry and Lingus finishes up his ripping solo, and then the horns take a big ripping solo together?
I'm kind of talking about In the Mood.
Oh, diddle-da-da-da-da. So several horns playing the melody line.
Right. Except it could be harmonized or in unison.
But they're moving as a unit.
Yes, they're moving as a unit.
Oh.
Oh my gosh. I'll pass. We can edit this. I was trying to think of
You have a song on the tip of your tongue.
I have a song on the tip of my tongue, and I'm not going to get it.
We're
so
not
we'll
just.
just
No, we're not. This stays in.
All right,
Bud. It'll come to you, and
all
I
right.
want you to blurt it out.
right.
Later.
Let's just stare in each other's eyes in complete silence for the next.
It's Careless
3 minutes.
Whisper.
It is not Careless Whisper.
Anyway, back to Hollywood.
Yeah, there we go. So I really like the vocal arrangement. I talked about horn soli. I really like that. There's also some cool keyboard patches in here that sent me down a friggin' rabbit hole.
Okay, and I have a sense where you're going. Can I say one thing about those patches on the very superficial before
Let's do it.
We eat the mushroom and jump down. So, what works for these key patches in my mind are the sustain.
Yeah.
We talked about drones last segment a little bit, or the common tone as you called it, and they add to the soundscape and this very beautiful major soundscape that holds this song through.
Yeah.
So, what did you learn?
So I'm listening to the keyboard patches, and they have a fairly distinctive sound. And there was a very popular keyboard of the time, the Yamaha GX1, which is known as the Dream Machine. It's a $60,000 keyboard.
60,000 now or 60,000 then?
Then
Whew.
it's a beast of a machine.
Who played these things?
Stevie Wonder,
Say no more.
right? It's featured heavily on songs in the key of life.
Oh man.
So in my brain, I'm like, is this a GX1 making this sound, or is this a Moog, a mini Moog? Couldn't quite tell. In full disclosure, I thought I would be smart and ask AI to do the research for me. And of course, it confirmed 100% with certainty that it's a GX1.
Dan, you're a genius.
Bullshit. Do not trust AI.
What else did it confirm, Dan?
Oh, it confirmed lots of things, because some of these patches, what got me interested is there's some specific things that I hear in this one and in another song. So, and later on we can talk about that. But so I asked about the other artist, and they confirmed that artist,
100% as well?
100%.
Oh my gosh.
No evidence. No evidence once I actually did my research. So I had my feelings, and I told AI what I thought about it. But anyway,
Surgeons and doctors are not asking Chat GPT-4 right now for these opinions.
correct. So anyway, but what I did find out, which was interesting, so as I was going down the GX1 thing, of course, Stevie Wonder came up. And we've talked about Stevie Wonder already and his relationship to Rufus, because he wrote the song "Tell Me Something Good,"
Which is arguably, I mean, definitely Rufus's biggest.
Yeah.
Maybe not Chaka's, but top
Rufus.
three.
Yeah. So the Stevie Wonder connection. So Bobby Watson, who is fantastic on this, and I'm noticing essence of James Jamerson on this.
On bass.
On bass, yeah.
Very melodic.
Yeah, very melodic. So Bobby Watson happened to play bass on Rock With You by Michael Jackson on Off the Wall. Of course, Stevie Wonder wrote the song I Can't Help It on that same album.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So there's some sort of relationship
This is
there.
where you're getting some of that effect synergy, probably.
Yeah. And Quincy Jones, who was the producer on Off the Wall, also produced one of Chaka Khan's albums. I should have wrote it down, but I didn't.
No, but now you know they have access to the GX series gear, and I mean if you're working with Quincy,
Right.
you can ask for any, and you're like, give me Aphrodite's harp, and they're like, yeah, we got three.
Right. 100%. 100%.
Oh, can I break off for one quick second?
Yeah, do it.
So my good buddy Ralph Rillen, you know Ralph, killer drummer, plays with me. We have this music store in our area called Chuck Levin's. Several years ago, I saw that they were the number 3 sales importer of musical equipment, or exporter. Like they sold more online than everybody except for Sweetwater and Guitar Center.
Wow.
In the nation. And this is based out of Wheaton, Maryland, just outside of DC. Ralph says he's in here at old Chuck Levin's as a kid looking at these brass snare drums. He's love about brass snare drums. And in walks nobody but James Brown and like 5 of the dudes. And they walk up right next to him. They look at this row of these 6 brand new, beautiful plated snare drums. Mm-hmm. He pulls out a fat wad of cash and tells the guy at the register, get all this down for me. and buys all 6 and walks out.
That is awesome.
Talk about access to gear. Sorry, I had to share that one. He'd be thrilled that I said it.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, I thought that was an interesting connection. So through my rabbit hole on the GX1, which I do not believe is on this album, looking at some like live footage, definitely uses a Moog, and among other keyboards. I don't believe that's actually on here. But it's non-conclusive. If anyone knows,
we'd love to hear from you. All you weird synth heads out there, come at us.
Yeah.
There's some really fun use, and listening to the arrangement they have, I mean, it's nice to see them lean into using some of those effects. I mean, you got to think about who were the synth leaders at the time in late 70s. I mean, Herbie Hancock, maybe.
Yep.
And I mean, you didn't see a lot of it in the Stevie realm. You did see some of it in the Parliament realm.
Yep. Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Oh yeah, sure. If you want to like go to like the whole other side of this.
Yep.
But for them to embrace it, I think they used it. They never exploited it. It was used as a supporting role mainly.
Yeah, it was just that it was reminiscent of some things.
Totally. Well, I think it modernized and fattened up some of the strings.
Yeah.
Especially in this song. Which to me, Hollywood has vibes of 2 very prominent songs in my mind.
Let's hear it.
One, Midnight Train to Georgia.
Wow.
Your face. I wish people could see right now.
Wow.
That when she comes in the verse.
I just got goosebumps from that.
It's pulling from that a little bit. Everything from the chord progression to her presentation. Are you familiar with this song by a group called, I think it might be a DJ. It's called The Avalanches. Since I've Met You. And it's just a spun sample that has a very similar kind of string line, major, happy, flowy, the kind of like 1/4 thing going on.
Yep.
Between Midnight Train and Since I Met You, that's where this song lives with me. And I definitively, for the record, would put this as my number 1 on the B-side because it's a breath of fresh air in the middle of this album.
Yeah. And what's nice is, so like, it's like a 2-chord chorus.
Yep.
But then the verse like takes you on a bit of a journey.
Yeah, it branches out
Yeah.
a little bit more. They leave you on that 5 tone for like an extra measure, it feels like, before they come back and phrase out again. A really, really great listen on this album.
Yeah, fantastic.
Bringing us into song number 7, Magic in Your Eyes.
This song feels like a dream to me.
That could mean so many things.
Like I think this is a beautiful song. And I'm curious if the bass and the keys play so well together, if they actually work their parts out as opposed to just grooving on it.
I mean, this is, in my personal opinion, the strongest pocket on the entire album.
Yeah.
16th notes on the drum set. And then, the bass and keys are really moving. There's nothing flashy here, guys.
No.
But what you really get is a killer R&B song.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful. The keyboard parts playing off of each other. It's not that it's counterpoint, but they're definitely playing off of each other in this orchestration. I was asking Carl, as he mentioned, we don't really talk a lot about this, but we do a quick, what are we gonna say? Are there any high points we want to hit? And I even asked him, because it's hard to tell if the bass player is playing like double stops on the bass here to support it, or it's just a low chord in the keyboards. It can go either way.
I think that I heard a little bit of distortion on this part, and so I think it's like a natural like Rhodes breakup,
probably
on a lower note. They get that growl with that kind of cool timbre.
Yeah,
but tasty playing, controlled playing across the board. It is a classic silver platter serve up for Chaka just to really, really lay into.
And there's a really cool unison vocal riff that gets them into this turnaround that gets you out of the groove a little bit, but it's very nice. It's like a 16th note sort of thing that comes out of it. Totally. But everything else is just a slow jam and a beautiful song.
Love this tune.
Yeah,
absolutely. How about Better Days?
Okay. So here's an interesting one. So I made another connection.
Okay. This is song number 8, by the way, for those who are still following.
Number 8. And this is to a song that nobody knows. but I asked Carl to listen to it.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
So, what is his name from Extreme?
Gary Sharon from Extreme in 2005 released a solo album called Sharon, and it has a lot of like R&B and soul tunes on it. And if this song was, if the song "Love Got Left Behind" by Gary Sharon is not a direct copy, or is definitely derivative or
Yeah, but so how's
inspired
the
by.
litigation not flying right now?
Yeah.
Listen to it. We'd love to hear your feedback on the back-to-back here, because the only running joke we had as we listened to them back-to-back was, man, I wish they'd had the 2005 mastering on the on the Rufus of Chaka Khan.
Now, I will say we didn't get to it because we didn't listen to the whole track. There's a fantastic guitar solo in the Gary Sharon song, which we should listen to after this. But
I'm in.
But let's talk about Better Days.
Yes.
Is there a kuka?
A
Or
huica
in this song?
So yeah, for those who don't know what a huica is,
Yep.
I don't even know if I'm saying it right.
I think it's pronounced kuka, even though it should be cuica.
Huica?
Because it's a Portuguese and it looks like Spanish, so I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm just a white
Lose
American.
me in Madeira,
Yeah.
I'll be the happiest person. But I'll take the risk. So it's that ooh, 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 ooh type of sound. It sounds like it's like a squealing vocal, talking, drummy type of sound.
It's a nice big McDonald's straw after you finish your soda.
It's exactly wow, dead on.
Yeah.
I say no more, fam. But you know, if you're familiar with this song, "Tell Me Something Good," I'd be willing to bet just off the cusp that over the heavy breathing part that separates the verse from the chorus, the pre-chorus, there might be a featured one there as well.
Yeah. Now, I've seen
Paul
some...
Simon maybe too used it heavily.
Yeah, probably on Graceland.
On Graceland?
Yeah, yeah.
Not the song, but the album somewhere.
Yeah, I think you're right. Now, I think I've seen footage of Rufus, and unfortunately, I don't know all of the members by sight, but one of the guitar players was voicing this sound.
Sure.
It's hard to tell on this recording whether or not it's voiced or actually the instrument. Either way, it's on there.
For those who are absolutely lost what we're talking about, listen to the song and be like, when does it sound like jungle sounds?
Right.
That is what we're talking about.
Yes.
And I love it. It's organic.
Yep.
And I think conceptually, when you're creating albums that rely on the use of vocal or vocal adjacent, which is like what I think this does for me.
Yep.
And it's not a traditional role, which is singing, harmonies, rapping.
Yep.
But just another way. So like using breathing as rhythm. And it's just, there's something I think that personalizes the song very quickly.
Yeah.
I love it. This song has such great elements. The latter half of this album overall, I think just outperforms the first half, in my personal opinion, just staring at it. And
I would
talking
agree.
about this.
I would agree. One last thing I would say, well, two last things really quick, is there's more of that keyboard patch, that GX1 / Moog thing in here. And in this one, what it really reminded me of, the AI confirmed, even though I think is wrong, is the keyboard patch reminds me of the featured keyboard patch on Pink Floyd's Shine On You Crazy Diamond parts 6 through 9. So there's a keyboard part, which is the melody. And I'm like, this has got to be the same patch.
All right, we're going to deep dive that after this.
And so they said, yes, of course, Richard Wright from Pink Floyd used this heavily on, and I don't know that I can find any evidence of that on the internet either.
But I mean, your ear's good enough. There will be a connection that we can pull from.
Yeah.
And I mean, talk about cross genre.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And the other thing is, as Chaka comes out of the chorus, she doesn't resolve.
Oh, I love that.
It was a flat third or whatever that she's hitting
I
on
didn't
that.
catch that.
Yeah, but yeah.
I love the idea of that.
Yeah, she doesn't resolve coming out of the chorus, that's not what a chorus does. But what it does is it propels the song right into the verse beautifully.
Oh.
And it's got some stank on it because there's tension. So it's beautiful.
You come to expect with these funky, fusiony, jazzy oriented players.
Yeah.
You know, that's a decision that's made by a composer or a group thereof.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
now this is one of my favorite listens on the album by a long run. And then lastly, a song brilliantly titled Egyptian Song.
Yeah. So I'm assuming you're tongue in cheek there, because it starts, in my opinion, with a gospel intro,
Indeed.
which doesn't sound anywhere near Egyptian.
No, you look at this, you're like, okay, this is going to be Arabian Nights. It's not.
It's not. Lyrically, they talk about Egypt.
They do indeed.
But I don't know if it's not a metaphor for other racial oppression.
That's
Kinda
100%
stuff.
what I think it is.
Yes. So I don't know why they gloss over it. Why do that? Because the gospel sound, there's a tambourine in this song that's buried in the background that almost sounds like a chain.
Oh, no, yeah. I mean, they're talking about reading into it.
Yeah.
And well, here's the art.
Yeah.
It got you to think that far. That's
Yeah.
art.
Yeah.
I would love to be a fly on the wall to see kind of how that discussion went down and why they chose, to call it what they did and produce it the way they did. It could confirm a lot, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting song to end an album on.
Kind of pretentious, actually, with its string arrangement.
Yeah. I found the strings distracting.
Yeah. It actually kind of brought me into musical theater.
Oh, no.
So the mellow parts of the song Supper Time from Little Shop of Horrors, which is a fantastic score and a fantastic soundtrack, but kind of took me out of the vibe.
Yeah.
I felt very musical theater, and at the end of this,
Well,
they're
that's-
just flexing their orchestral.
If you have a song that's directly addressing slavery
Right.
and it turns into Gershwin, I'm not saying, did Gershwin do Little Shop? I don't know.
Yeah.
You understand? I come from a family who loves musical theater. I despise it. So you ever want to like pluck a hair with me? There it is.
Some good tracks on that soundtrack.
Stay out of my head right now. Our listeners don't want to see this. I look overall. The song it's a good song. My bone to pick here is don't end your album on it.
No.
Like what a buzzkill.
Yeah. So I'll say something that I'm sure will be very contentious. Okay.
And you can tell us.
Yeah.
At backwardsbeatspodcast@gmail.com.
Go ahead. Yeah. So the album Let It Be by the Beatles.
I've heard of it.
Yes. So second to last album recorded, last album released. Right. And 9-hour documentary that just came out about it. Right. And that album they shelved and they made Abbey Road. And while they shelved that album, they decided to have strings added to it. And in my opinion, the strings on that album are very distracting. So several years ago, the Beatles re-released the album Let It Be Naked, where the strings, the Phil Spector strings, are not on it.
And
It's a far better album in this podcaster's humble opinion.
I've never seen Dan clench both his knees and look me dead in the eye before.
I'm literally
while
about to
talking.
say that there's a shitty version of a Beatles album, right? So it's not that it's bad, but like Long and Winding Road is too, in my opinion, too schmaltzy with strings. And when you hear it with the strings ripped out on Let It Be Naked, so good.
All right.
So good. I know that's contentious because why would you touch perfection or whatever? But
I mean,
the Beatles had an issue with it.
yeah, exactly.
So don't shoot me. I didn't make it. They made it.
It wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have been remastered.
Right.
Had this not been an opinion that had been explored.
Right. So I say that to say that I think I would like Egyptian song more. Sans orchestra.
There you go. The gospel element is I play into the word right there. There's something holy about gospel.
Yeah.
And it's simple and emotional. It doesn't need embellishment.
Right.
So I agree. There's a messaging error here. Probably not the song I'd be running around showing people if I wanted to show what Rufus was all about.
Right.
But I encourage it as art. It's not a bad song by any means or length. I just, I think that to recap what, the 9 songs we just talked about, we still walk away, and this last song being kind of a note of that, with this, what is this band?
Yeah.
Well, they have the smoking singer. There's no question about that. You get these really talented musicians, and you got these arrangements that are literally all over the place.
Yeah.
At the core of it, you can find some really good R&B. Influenced by funk, influenced by jazz, but at the end of the day, this is an R&B album, right?
Yeah.
It's not competing, for a fusion album or a orchestral. It simply is a very, very good R&B album, but without Chaka Khan, this album would be something I probably would not buy.
Yeah.
So, would you hit it?
Would you hit it? So, if I were to, let's talk about would you hit it.
But I say this is still for the newer listeners. What is the concept of would you hit it?
Would you hit it is, would you put this in your rotation?
Or in my case, would you buy it on vinyl?
Would you buy it on vinyl?
Would you like the answer?
Sure.
I personally don't think that this is the album from Rufus and Chaka Khan I would choose of their collection to call the top 500 works. I'm sure they were doing some great stuff for the time. This either lacks 2 or 3 good songs or needs a reboot of the order of it and maybe to discard 1 or 2.
Yeah, I agree. There are songs on here I would hit. And will hit.
Absolutely.
But as a complete work,
No.
no.
And this is coming off of last week's Arcade Fire, which for sure I thought I would not hit, but that one was very cohesive at the end of the day. This is a collection of songs that overall they're pretty well executed, but this collection of songs, it's like having pasta and hamburgers, and it's like the menu is all over
Brussels
the place.
sprouts, yeah.
Precisely, yeah. I'm looking for something that would I put this album on and would I spin it all the way through and be able to maintain a vibe or at least ride a ride? Yeah. This is stopgap after stopgap.
For the record, I like all 3 of those things. Pasta, burgers, and Brussels sprouts.
Sure.
Just not on the same plate.
That's exactly right. And so, yeah, surprise. Thought this one would be a sure ringer in my mind, and this is what this podcast does.
Yeah, 2 episodes in, and we're already surprised.
We've flipped ourselves. One could say we're backwards. I'm a father. I'm allowed to do it. Speaking of backwards beats, we're so thankful for anybody who is willing to tune in with us here. Like what we said, don't like what we said, want to dispute it, you want to, we're more than happy to engage with you. You can catch us on our Instagram at
Backwards Beats Podcast.
Or our Gmail at
backwardsbeatspodcast@gmail.com.
And what album will we explore next week?
Next week we have album 498, which is the album Suicide by Suicide.
Oh.
Should be uplifting.
Well, I'm Carl Carter Fansfield.
And I'm Dan Woodard.
We'll uplift you next week.
That was a show about the album Ask Rufus by the band Rufus. Band is great and Chaka rules, but this just doesn't cut it.
Backwards Beats Podcast is a 2-to-1 production recorded live at Thought Shack Studios in Halethorpe, Maryland.
If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You can find us at Backwards Beats Podcast on most platforms.
Share the love, and we'll see you next week for another deep dive into the next album on Rolling Stone Magazine's Top 500 list. Until then, salt your melons.